Sam Cooke had not seen Joseph in 15 years. The last time he had seen him, Joseph had been the better singer. Everyone had known it. Sam had known it. And then something had happened. One night, one failure, one moment when the voice that should have changed everything had cracked at exactly the wrong time, and Joseph had never sung in public again. Tonight, he was sitting in the third row of Sam's concert, and Sam was going to do something about that. Sam saw him in the second song. The face was older, 15 years older, the way faces get when they have been through things, but completely recognizable. Joseph was sitting perfectly still in a hall full of people who were moving and responding and giving themselves over to the music. He was not moving. He was listening with the specific quality of someone who understands every note and is carrying something about it that nobody around him can see. Sam finished the second song. The crowd applauded, and Sam stood at the microphone for a moment, looking at Joseph in the third row. He had not planned what he was about to do. It had not been in the set list or the pre-show plan or any of the careful preparation that went into a Sam Cooke concert. It was simply a decision made in the space of perhaps 5 seconds about what the right thing to do was. He leaned into the microphone. He said, "I see someone in the audience tonight that I'd like to invite up here."
They had met in 1951, both of them young, both of them certain, both of them carrying voices that people stopped to listen to. They had competed in the same gospel circuits, played the same church halls, been compared to each other by the same people who made those comparisons. Sam was good. Everyone agreed on that. Joseph was better. Everyone agreed on that, too. Joseph's voice had a quality that Sam's voice at 20 was still reaching for, a warmth, a control, a capacity for reaching the specific place in a listener where music became something more than sound. When Joseph sang in a church, people cried who had not planned to cry. When he held a note, rooms went quiet in the particular way of rooms that have received something they did not expect to receive. He was, by the judgment of everyone who heard him in those years, someone whose voice was going to matter. Sam had admired him and competed with him and learned from watching him in the way that young performers learn from watching people who are slightly ahead of them. He had felt in those years that Joseph was the standard he was reaching toward, not with bitterness, with the specific respect of someone who recognizes excellence and takes it seriously. And then the night happened. It was a Saturday in the spring of 1952, a large church hall, a significant crowd, the kind of night that was supposed to be the beginning of something real for Joseph. He had been asked to perform a long solo piece, demanding, the kind of performance that announced a singer as someone serious and ready. He had done it dozens of times in rehearsal, in smaller venues, in the private spaces where performers prepare. He was ready. And then, in front of the crowd, the voice cracked. Not badly, not catastrophically, not in a way that destroyed the song entirely. Just once, just enough. Just at the moment when the piece required the most, when the audience was most leaned in, when the silence before the note was at its most expectant. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence, not the silence of people receiving something, the silence of people absorbing something unexpected and not knowing what to do with it. Joseph finished the song. He received applause, genuine applause, because the performance had been good except for that one moment. But he knew what had happened. He could feel it in the room, could feel the specific quality of an audience that has witnessed something it was not supposed to witness and is being careful about how it shows that. He walked off the stage, and he never walked onto one again.
In the 15 years since that night, Joseph had built a life that had nothing to do with music. A steady job, a family he was proud of, a house on a quiet street in a neighborhood where nobody knew he had once been, by some accounts, the most gifted young gospel singer in Chicago. He did not talk about it. He had, over the years, developed the particular skill of changing the subject when music came up, of redirecting conversations with such practiced ease that most people in his life did not know the subject existed to be changed. His wife knew. She had met him 2 years after the night, had heard enough from people who had known him before to understand that something had happened and that it was not something he would discuss directly. She had learned to work around it, the way you work around the things in a person that are not going to move. She had brought the tickets to the Sam Cooke concert because she thought it might be good for him, because Sam was someone from before, because sometimes the things that hurt you are also the things that can reach you. He had not wanted to come. He had agreed because she asked, and because refusing felt like admitting something he was not ready to admit. He had told himself he was coming as a spectator, as someone watching a former acquaintance perform, not as someone who had once stood on stages himself and felt what it felt like to have a room go quiet in the right way. He had found his seat in the 3rd row and had sat down and had watched Sam Cooke walk onto the stage, and something in his chest had done the thing it did when he was near music, the specific tightening that was not quite pain and not quite longing, but contained elements of both. He had breathed through it. He had told himself it was fine. He had listened to the first song with the careful, controlled attention of a man managing himself. And then Sam had seen him.
The crowd did not understand immediately why Sam had stopped. They had been in the middle of a great concert, fully present, fully given over to it, and now Sam was standing at the microphone looking at someone in the 3rd row. Some people turned to see who Sam was looking at. Others waited with the particular patience of an audience that trusts a performer enough to let an unexpected moment unfold without needing it explained. Joseph understood immediately. He felt the eye contact like something physical, like a hand pressed against a door he had kept closed for 15 years. 15 years fell away in the second that Sam looked at him. Not all of it. Not the job and the family and the house on the quiet street and the mornings when he had gotten up and made breakfast and gone to work and not thought about any of this. But enough. Enough that his hands, folded in his lap, pressed slightly together without him deciding to press them. Sam said, "This man and I go back a long way. Some of you won't know his name, but I know his voice, and I think it's time the rest of you did too." Joseph shook his head, a small movement, instinctive, the reflex of 15 years of not doing this. Sam saw it. He said, into the microphone, but directly at Joseph, "Come on up here. I'm not going to let you sit in the 3rd row and just listen." The crowd responded to this, not fully understanding the history, but feeling the weight of the moment, the particular quality of something personal happening in a public space that the performer has decided to make visible. They began to applaud, encouraging, expectant, the sound of people who want to be part of whatever is about to happen. Joseph sat for a moment longer. He was aware of the people around him, aware of his wife beside him, of the strangers on either side who had turned to look at him, of the hall full of people waiting for him to do something. He was aware of the distance between his seat and the stage, and of the fact that his legs, if he stood up, would have to carry him across that distance. His wife's hand found his arm. She didn't say anything. She had known when she bought the tickets that something like this might happen. She had bought them anyway, because sometimes the things that hurt you are also the things that can reach you. Joseph stood up. The walk from the 3rd row to the stage was perhaps 30 feet. Joseph made it the way you make a walk that your body is doing while your mind is somewhere else entirely. Somewhere 15 years back, in a church hall on a Saturday night in spring, hearing the silence that had followed the crack in the voice that was supposed to announce him to the world. Sam met him at the edge of the stage. He did not make a performance of it, did not announce Joseph's history to the crowd, or explain what he was doing, or turn the moment into something larger than it needed to be. He simply handed Joseph the microphone, and he stepped back, and he waited. Joseph stood at the front of the stage and looked out at the hall. perhaps 1,000 people, looking at him, waiting. The specific feeling of it, the quality of being in front of people who are waiting for you to give them something, was exactly as he remembered it, both the terror and the other thing, the thing underneath the terror that had always been there, the thing that had made him a singer in the first place, before the career and the competition and the one night that had ended it. The thing that he had told himself was gone, that he had spent 15 years building a life around not having. It was not gone. He opened his mouth, and he sang. What came out was not the voice of a young man at his peak in 1952. It was something older than that, and in certain ways richer. A roughness at the edges, a weight in the lower register, the particular character that a voice develops when it has been lived in for 15 years rather than performed, when it has been carried through a marriage and children and ordinary days and the specific grief of a gift set aside. It was not perfect. It was more than perfect. It was true. The hall went quiet in the way that halls go quiet when something unexpected and real is happening. People who had been talking stopped. People who had been half present became fully present. Sam, standing to the side of the stage, watched the crowd receive it, watched the particular shift of an audience that has been given something it did not expect and is now completely still with the receiving of it. Joseph sang for 3 minutes. When he finished, he stood in the silence for a moment, the specific silence that follows something real, the silence that is not absence but the fullness of what has just passed through a room. And then the hall erupted, not politely, not out of social obligation, with the specific generosity of an audience that has been given something real and wants the person who gave it to know, without any ambiguity, that they received it completely. Sam walked back to the microphone. He put his hand briefly on Joseph's shoulder. He said nothing. Joseph handed back the microphone. He walked back to the third row. He sat down next to his wife. She took his hand. He let her. After the show, Sam found him backstage. They stood together for a moment, 2 men who had been young together and had gone very different directions, and were now standing in the same corridor again, with the sound of the crowd still faintly in the air around them. Sam said, "Why did you stop?" Joseph looked at him. He said, "You know why." Sam said, "One night, one crack." Joseph said, "It was enough." Sam looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "It wasn't. You just decided it was." Joseph didn't answer that immediately. He stood with it, the specific weight of a true thing arriving in a place that has been defended against true things for a long time. He thought about the church hall and the silence and the 15 years of mornings when he had gotten up and not sung. He thought about the 3 minutes on the stage tonight and what had come out of him when he had opened his mouth. He thought about his wife's hand on his arm and the crowd's sound at the end and the specific quality of Sam standing to the side, watching the room receive it. He said, "Maybe." Sam said, "That voice is still there. You heard it tonight. So did everyone else." Joseph nodded, once. The nod of a man who has heard something true and is not yet ready to say what he's going to do with it, but is no longer able to pretend he hasn't heard it. They stood there for another moment in the backstage corridor, 2 men who had once competed for the same rooms and the same approval, one of whom had kept going, and one of whom had stopped. Both of them understanding, standing in that corridor after that concert, something about what the stopping had cost, and what it might mean to stop stopping. Sam said, "Come to the show tomorrow." Joseph looked at him. Sam said, "And bring your voice." Joseph didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He looked at Sam for a moment with the expression of a man who has just been handed something he had put down 15 years ago and is feeling the weight of it, finding that it is exactly as heavy as he remembered, and that his hands, despite everything, still know how to hold it. He said, "I'll think about it." Sam nodded. That was enough. For now, that was enough. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe. Every day we tell the stories behind the music, the moments when someone decided to give another person back something they had lost. Hit the like button if you believe that it is never too late to return to the thing you were meant to do. And tell us in the comments, have you ever stopped doing something you loved because of one bad moment? Because Joseph did, for 15 years. And then Sam Cooke called him up on stage, and the voice was still there. It always had been. We'll see you in the next one.